I mentioned to everybody a little bit about your background, and now the founder of the Metacostal network of churches, and a little bit about your epiphany that you had a number of years ago that challenged the status quo. And because of your particular courage to challenge the status quo, you were excommunicated from the church.
Yeah.
And were you defrocked? I mean, give people a little bit of understanding about your background and some of the epiphany that occurred to you and what changed your life.
Well, traditionally, once a bishop, always one, even in retirement. But I was consecrated in 1996. Bishop Charles Blake was the chief of consecrated, but Bishop Patterson was there. And so none of them have denounced me. The organization that did denounce me, the founder just transitioned 2 weeks ago, Bishop Ellis, the one that's portrayed in the movie. But I still have a lot of those friends. In fact, more now than I did then, because they are curious. The church is feeling a bit stunted, a bit stagnated, really stunned that it can't function, because in Kojic or Pentecostal church is a very active, embracive, believing in spirit possession and praising and loud responses. They can't do that now. In other words, we can't say, I can't get no help up in here. Somebody repeat, turn to your neighbor. So our brothers don't know what to do. So it's kind of fun to watch this evolution, because we're learning how to go from having church to literally being the church, the kindness, the graciousness, the integrity, the love, the giving. So this is something's ordained in this, universally prescribed, that we're going to have to work with and flow with. And I'm pretty excited about it. Right. The Greek renderings of the word apostate, they call me the Apostate Church. The word apostate actually means runaway slave. And because religion can be rather binding, and just like living on a plantation and getting, or having 40 acres and a mule, at one point you literally, the scripture says, Jesus says, you shall know the truth, not believe it, but know the truth. Right. And the truth you know, whether you believe it or not, will set you free.
Right.
I don't know how you would describe the difference between knowing and believing, but I'm sort of there right now.
No, it's absolutely true. I teach that belief is an operational substitute for knowing. So you have a belief, and it's a placeholder for practice, spiritual practice, and then your spiritual practice brings you into a degree of knowing, and you don't have to have belief anymore. That the problem with fundamentalism is that they have true believers, but they don't necessarily have people who have evolved to the point of actually knowing the presence of God, knowing love, knowing the Christ. They just believe. And if you think about true believers, they deeply have a fear that what they believe is not true. So they have to speak really loud about their belief rather than live it.
That makes great sense. Faith is for people who don't know, or for people who doubt. The word doubt is D-O-U-B-T, double D-O-U-B-L-E. They mean the doubting back and forth. He loves me, not, she loves me. So there's a bouncing around. But when you know, it solidifies you at a different level. Not just when you believe, but when you know in your soul and your cells.
Right.
Even though I went through all that rejection and it was painful, my soul and my cells remembered that I had signed up for this in some pre-incarnate reality. You would teach that better than me. And now I'm living it out, and it's like, okay, I got this. I signed up for this. I'd forgotten I entered this covenant, but now I remember, and it's okay. I can handle it. I can manage it. I can survive it.
Right. So for people who don't know you, I mean, you had one of the largest Pentecostal churches in the world. You had people coming, and then you started to have this epiphany that some of the tenets that you were teaching weren't real. Like, for instance, in the movie Come Sunday, there's a moment in the movie where you're looking at a young African girl, a baby that's dying of obviously starvation.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself, this person that doesn't even know anything about Christianity can't be going to hell just because they don't know anything about Jesus. And that began a train of thinking within you that ultimately got you excommunicated.
And I was looking at her, the Hutus and Tutsis were returning from Rwanda to Uganda, and the babies were starving. The mothers had this forlorn look of hopelessness. They sit on the edge of the street. The baby's trying to nurse from the breast. The breast is like a deflated balloon just there. And the mother has no hope. And I'm holding my little girl, Matthew, who just turned 24, Majesty, in my lap, little fat cheeks, kissing her when I wanted to, feeding her milk that had been pumped from her mother when her mother was at the church. While my wife was away, I was sitting there with my baby and my dad. And that's when it all hit me. Here I am, healthy, happy, whole. Those children starving. I wish I could feed even one of them. Even for my wife's milk, I would have done it. So I started feeling guilty and angry, if I could just at God and at the situation, saying, God, you're sucking those people right into hell. I presume they weren't Christians because David said, I once was young, now I'm old, never seen the righteous forsaken, nor seed begging bread. So I'm assuming these people are Muslims or something other than Christian. And then I was denouncing them to hell like I'd been taught. That's when I heard a voice say in my thinking, in my mind, so that's what you think we're doing, sending them all to hell? Can't you see they're already there? And that you created that, all of you who believe in hell, created for yourselves and others. Now that was like somebody hit me with a bat. Bam! Wow. I never thought of it that way. This was 20 some years ago, 24 years ago, but it hit me very strongly and it just grew on me. Shortly thereafter, you come into my life and explain my confusion.
I explain the confusion. Confusion is a high state of consciousness because you're warring with the old and the new at the same time.
Good.
And so there was new insights birthing in you that I just helped give language to what was happening to you.
Yeah.
And subsequently, you went through hell, losing everything, being denounced, as you said, by the church, because you also talked about the fact, I mean, you have a book out that Jesus is not a Christian. I mean, excuse me, God is not a Christian.
Right. And Jesus wasn't either.
Right. And Jesus wasn't either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty blasphemous coming from in the Pentecostal context.
Oh my God.
Because many people don't even know that Christianity didn't even exist when Jesus was alive.
Well, most Christians in America particularly have gotten King James and King Jesus mixed up. They think Jesus spoke 16th century King's English and said, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. A creature, when in English, when you think of creature, you think of an animal or an insect or a viper. You don't think of humans, and neither do I think some of our Anglo-Christians when they think that message came from England, London, not Jerusalem.
Right.
And so
Pakistan. Palestine.
Anything but the Middle East. So as you said, and many say for years, I don't know where it actually came from, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Right.
Not only the teacher appears, but teaching appears. You start learning things from different angles and angels that you might not have normally learned from. People come in and out of your life, articles, books, they just start coming all of a sudden, and bam, it affirms what you already know and reminds you of what you forgot. Right.
And you also tell a powerful story about, obviously the Pentecostal church condemned same-sex marriages and same-sex love, that these individuals obviously go to hell as well. And you were actually ministered by Bishop Flunder at one point, washed your feet.
Yeah.
When you went to speak at her church. I mean, the very church that condemned you, then you were embraced by these individuals who were in same-sex relationships, and they loved you.
I had indirectly judged too. I had these fundamentalists, sometimes bigoted positions on people who are not like us. Right. So either the color or the lifestyle, same gender loving people, we consider them to be either mentally ill or demon possessed. That's what they taught us.
Right.
So it took a same gender loving woman who had the same background religiously to come in. Nobody was inviting me in those days as a heretic. That was even before I met you. The same group I had semi-denounced as off or distant or disobedient, invited me in, not only to speak, then she says, now, when I got through preaching, she said, now walk down through the aisle and let us love on you and hold you and embrace you. And I hadn't been loved on or held or embraced by anybody in a long time, not religious people, and they did it. All these gay men and women, some of them suffering, some of them dying from AIDS, some of them you would never know they were sick or their sexuality was not obvious. They were just there and showing such love. And then when I turned back to the front, she was kneeling with a warm vat of water, Bishop herself, and asked me to take my shoes off so she could wash my feet. The marginalized, the people who were not included, were the ones who washed my feet when I started singing, preaching the gospel of inclusion. That was mind blowing.
And I still get moved just hearing about it right now. So you have the book, The Gospel of Inclusion.
Yes.
And then you have the book, God is Not a Christian.
Or Jew or Muslim or Hindu, but God is in us with us as us. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, absolutely. Now
and there's a vast difference between Gospel of Inclusion, which emphasizes the atonement through the blood. I no longer believe as much in a God that demands blood transactions or blood transitions.
Right.
I believe that blood would be used only metaphorically,
right,
as a form of life.
Right.
You give your life to and for, rather than the carnal, the cannibalism of so much of Christianity. So
yeah.
That freaks people out, but it also turns millions on. Maybe we got part of it wrong.
Right. I always teach that when Jesus says, this is my blood, drink of it, he's actually saying, these are my teachings. Eat and embody my teachings.
Yes.
He's not teaching cannibalism. He's teaching to embody, going back to the point you brought earlier, going beyond belief into knowing.
Yes.
Take this and digest this and assimilate it into your being and then live it.
Yeah.
And
that's the bread of life.
That's the bread of life. Yeah.
Very
so
good.
Actually, so now you use the word metacostal rather than Pentecostal. You say metacostal. What does that mean?
Metaphysicians are those who look beyond the physical and who can spiritualize life differently than religion imposes. And sometimes that even then scripture imposes. Now we're Pentecostals who already know about transcendence, esoteric movements, going to other spaces and places in consciousness, though they don't use that language, but that's the experience. So I wanted to maintain my Pentecostal roots in transcendence and still embrace the wider, expanded way of thinking scientifically and spiritually of metaphysics, which you teach so excellently. And I had those intuitions before I heard the teaching. When I heard you teach and read your books and others, it said, well, I'm not the first this has been out here. You call it ancient wisdom, not just new thought. I said, well, this is true. I just tuned in late.
Right. Well, you know what's so funny about that? I used to see you on television, New Dimensions, years ago.
Higher Dimensions. Yeah.
And you would start speaking and preaching, and all this metaphysical teaching would come out of your mouth. And you were a Pentecostal minister, and I could see it in you. I could see the mysticism, and I could see the metaphysics, even though you may not have owned it yet at that time. But I knew it. I could see it in you so well. Wow. And so then a number of years later, when we met, I thought about when I used to see you on television and how I saw it then. That everything that you've come into yourself. You got beside yourself, and then you became yourself.
Wow.
In a very powerful way. So how many people now would you say are being influenced by you under the aegis of metacostalism?
Well, actually, there are millions, because hundreds of thousands have seen the movie, millions, and I hear from them from all over the world. Sometimes there could be 50,000, 200,000, 5,000, 3,000. I mean, but they're from all over the world listening to my teachings, and they're saying, man, we've been thinking about this a long, long time, but we thought we were crazy. You have now made it make sense to us. We haven't actually lost our minds.
Right.
And then I start hearing from all this group of people in this country and culture that I didn't even know existed. And even if I did, I would have demonized them. And they're coming out of the woodwork, and they're doctors and attorneys and priests and rabbis and imams from all the different traditions. And see, I see enough Pentecostal in New Thought, or in, especially when I come to Agape Spiritual, I see the transcendence. It's all over the place. I hear it.
Yeah.
And so my background merges quite well. In fact, it informed my infusion into expanded consciousness. We're brothers and sisters in a very powerful way that the world hasn't even known. And I think the different reformations haven't recognized it. Now, with things like, I just got a report that Biden, not to get into politics, Biden has been given the state of Michigan, and that things are shifting politically. The evangelical world out of which in which I was born and reared, is questioning again, because they prophesied that he will win, and there's a lot of stuff out there. If it doesn't turn out quite the way they think, they're going to have to reconsider why they were thinking that.
Right. So they were prophesying that Trump was going to win.
Pat Robertson said it last week. He went to heaven. He had a dream. God showed him. But the prophet said that before Trump ran, prophets I know prophesied that he would win. But they didn't just say he would win a first term. They said he'd win a second term and become a born-again Christian. That's what they were prophesying. Now, he apparently is going to lose a second term unless something dramatic happens here.
Are you saying that at this precise moment, you're noticing that Biden has taken Michigan?
Well, CNN has projected Michigan and Wisconsin. He has Michigan. It looks like he's got Wisconsin so far, Arizona and Nevada. That's the latest. Keep it on. So just there, even if he doesn't get Pennsylvania, he has won the 270 electoral votes. He's ahead of Trump now. Yeah.
So Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are about to step onto the playing field to. We're going to have to hold them to their promises too that they made when they were running. Oftentimes people think that you win something when whoever you're supporting gets into office, but oftentimes the citizens abdicate their responsibility, go back to business as usual, and think that the president and the vice president are supposed to do something. Yeah. But it's actually the citizens that have all the power.
Of course.
We have the power, and so we have to actually design our vision. What does our world look like? What do we want our world to look like? What kind of design do we have for our healthcare system, our social security system, our prison industrial system? We have to actually begin to articulate where we want to go, and then allow the politicians to follow our lead. Yeah. But people abdicate their own power, and they think that they're supposed to do it, and they can't do anything without the will of the people.
And they work for us. We pay their salaries.
Yeah.
And they forget that. So I think the whole Congress and consciousness of the nation is shifting. This has been the number one reason why a person like Donald Trump would come to the forefront, is to expose perhaps what ultimately needs to be expelled.
Yes.
Attitudinally and consciously from this country. We've been almost traumatized for 4 years. And just with the chaos and the vitriol and the mouthing off and the bullying and the insults, it's been the racism, the misogyny, all the phobias out there. We're now saying, okay, this is not the America we want, we choose, and we're going to make a change.
Yeah, I would agree. He's exposed a lot. He, instead of being a unifying figure, he became a divisive figure.
Yes.
And he exposed a lot that we have to work on. And now we have to work on those things that were exposed. We can't go back. We can't go back to sleep. And the whole world was looking at us.
And still,
everybody was looking.
Still
so now it's time. It's going to be time to get to work. And as I was speaking to one of my godsons earlier, he was alleviating the fears of some of his friends about whoever we get into office. And he was explaining to them that regardless of who gets into office, we still have the same work we have to do.
Of course.
And these were some of his white friends. And he was saying, listen, we've been doing this kind of work for years, as Black people.
Sure.
First survival work and then work to change the system. We've been doing it for a long time. Come on, jump in. We all have to work together to create a kind of society.
And for the first time, maybe ever in the history of this country, there are more non-Black people supporting Black Lives Matter or things related to that than we've ever had. More white people are shot and killed by police annually, but there are more white people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Percentage-wise, there's more black people, but there's more white people that get killed by police officers.
Right. Right. And so we need to deconstruct and reconstruct the whole system of the penal system, the legal system. Lawmakers have become lawbreakers or endorse lawbreakers. So I think we're having to look at everything now, from the rights and powers of the presidency, executive office, to the Supreme Court situation, to make those numbers a little bit more fair, and to recognize that that freedoms that we've been given through the Constitution and amendments have been violated. And so I think with the new administration, it's going to purge a lot of that and clarify some things, because the people are now demanding it. We didn't know it was this corrupt.
Right.
We didn't realize it was this backwards. And now the country, which is a country of class and caring and dignity, regardless of the races, is now saying, okay, let's fix America. Yeah.
Yeah. It's make America great. Period.
Yeah. Not make America hate. Again, legally.
Somebody had just said to us that the allyship has increased, and I want to just say that basically I don't like to use the word ally. I like to use the word collaborator, because an ally says something like, you're over there and you're going to help me, but a collaborator means we're in this together. We're all human beings.
Good.
So we're all collaborating for a kind and just global society, and we may have different issues, you know what I mean, that we have to deal with, but everybody's issue is everybody's issue to complete, to bring to a level of harmony and a level of peace for everyone. So
and that we don't have to go along to get along.
Yeah.
We can mind many of the same things without having the same mind about everything. We have
Absolutely.
to work together.
Absolutely. Somebody sent me a text. They were very afraid because some of their greatest friends and people who were in the movement with them in terms of environmental work, in terms of diet, in terms of, had suddenly become Trumpers. You know, that's what she called them. And she was trying to figure out how did they, and she was asking me my opinion. I was saying, you know, we're living in a time in which individuals can be absolutely in alignment on certain issues and then absolute disagreement on other issues. It used to be all black and white. You know what I mean? If you were a vegan, climate, tree-hugging kind of person, you were left.
Yeah.
If you were into business and whatever, just about making money, you were on the right. But now things are mixed up, which is a sign of evolution, that things aren't black and white anymore. But it leads me to this point. We don't have to agree on all of the details. What we have to agree upon is, what does a kind and just global society look like? We have to begin to live at that level vibrationally. And then through the law of emergence, that will manifest regardless of who's in office.
Yeah.
Again, the power of the citizens, which is why a couple of weeks ago we had the World Healing Meditation. And this Sunday, you called us together on your Facebook page to have a moment of prayer and meditation and sacred reflection, so that we could, as citizens, come together and hold the space, a reverential space of love and peace and harmony.
Yes, healing.
That we can, you know, you had Lou Gossett and me, Marianne Williamson, Sister Jenna,
Jesse Jackson Jr.
Jesse Jackson Jr., Bishop Flunder. What was the rabbi's name you had with us?
Rabbi Barkley. Lives in LA there. Mark Barkley.
Rabbi Barkley. You brought us all together Sunday night, which was 5:30 Pacific time, to give reflection and to pray and to put into the atmosphere the possibility of not only having a peaceful election, but that regardless of who was in the White House, we could begin to move towards a higher vision. And I still getting feedback from that. And I think people can still watch that, right? On your Facebook?
Yeah. Over tens of thousands are watching since we aired it. So live. And the last time we did that was when it was the day that Trump came to Tulsa.
Right.
And the rally bombed.
Right.
This next time we did it just before the election, the day before the election, 2 days before the election. And we found out, you know, that I don't know that we had any particular direct influence on what happened, but the outcome is turning out to be different because there's enough of us in our collective consciousness who want the best for the culture and the country, who want healing and unity. And we understand that the Greek word for agreement is symphoneo, where we get this word symphony. Doesn't mean to sound the same, doesn't even mean to sound alike, but it does mean to sound together.
Yeah.
And we want to sound together, even with the partisan politics. We can do our thing together and not work against each other.
Right.
Now,
right.
the healing has to begin anew.
Right. So I want to just call people's attention to the fact that you can still go to Bishop Carlton Pearson's Facebook page and you can watch that particular iteration of prayer and meditation. You can watch the entire thing on his Facebook page. Yeah. You can also go to ZionEarth.com, SION Earth.com, in which a few weeks ago we did a healing for the entire world, and we brought I did a visioning for the planet, had some sacred music, some sacred technology. So these kind of things, you know, I believe create a field, a living vibratory field that allows for miracles to take place, that allows for the that which is invisible to begin to be visible, the manifestation of harmony and love and peace and wholeness. This is the kind of work that we're seeking to do, going back to Bishop Carlton's first point, moving from being a believer to actually knowing the truth that makes us free. So prayer, meditation, life visioning, study, fellowship, hanging with high consciousness people moves you from merely being a believer with an opinion, because everybody's got opinions, to actually knowing the truth of your being that sets us free. And this is necessary. And you know what's beautiful about this, Bishop? A small group of people that know something are way more powerful than a lot of people that have opinions. Vibrationally.
That's great. That's good.
Vibrationally. If you have a small group of people and they know for sure that 2 + 2 is 4, and you got 1 million people that think 2 + 2 is 5, that small group of people is going to get the math right and make a difference. And that large group of people is just going to have an opinions about it, you know.
That's
and so we have to really, you know, we have to do our inner spiritual work. Spiritual work, as you know, it's not namby-pamby, it's not frivolous, it's not anemic, you know, it's powerful. When you have a change of consciousness and that new wine goes into those new wineskins, I mean, your whole perspective changes. The energy that flows through you and the confidence and the ability to get things done is amplified. And we need a citizenry that's fired up, not religiously, not with religiosity, but with the truth that makes us free.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I call the born again experience. It's not words that you say that do that. It's an awakening. When Jesus said to Nicodemus, well, you must be born again. Nicodemus said, what do you mean born again? So you wouldn't have recognized my divinity or yours unless you'd have an ethereal. The word again is the Greek word anothen, where we get the English word another or an ether or ether. Jesus was saying to Nicodemus, you've had an ethereal awakening, an expansion. You've come alive. And that's what I feel is happening, not as somebody responding to an altar call. It's you don't have, you can hear in your soul something saying, reconsider what you believe, why you believe it, and how those beliefs add to or subtract from the quality of your life. Which is what I did 20-some years ago. And it's like the whole universe opened up so warmingly, welcomingly, and just started bringing in the Michael Beckwiths and the Stevie Wonders and the, you know, the Spencers and cheap chokers.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Stevie Wonder sent you in my direction, and we got a chance to physically meet after I'd seen you on television and knew who you were.
Well, his songs have been metaphysical. I didn't know he knew you, but I always heard something in his songs that, even though he's Kojic in his background, Church of God in Christ, Stevie Wonder long time transcended that in his lyrics and thinking as a man who was blind but sees differently than we who have normal eyes. And when he said, have you heard of Michael Beckwith? You got to get to know Mike. He's right where you are. He's the guy you need to hear. I mean, he basically insisted that I call you.
Right.
That I find you.
That was fortuitous. I
Yes.
love Stevie. I love Stevie. I did his wedding last year.
He adores you. I mean, he respects you. He could have mentioned 10,000 people. He only mentioned you.
Yeah. No, we have a deep respect for each other, and you know, he's been to my office many times, and we chopped it up and prayed together. And he's one of the greatest musicians, great poet,
ever,
great songwriter,
ever
of all time,
ever.
Yeah. So prophetic. When he did Intervisions after he had that car accident, you know, it was all over. You know, he had an epiphany.
He always sees something that the rest of us don't see right away, because he's naturally blind, but spiritually more intuitive, sensitive. He can just feel the room. It's amazing.
I remember one night I used to go to his studio. It was when Sarita was making her transition, and I would go to the hospital and pray with her. But we'd meet back at Stevie's studio, and Stevie has any relationship to time, you know. And so 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I gotta go. And he's still talking. And so at one point, we're sitting talking. There's a bunch of us in the studio, and I leave and go to the back of the room behind him just to kind of rest for a minute. And all of a sudden, Stevie turns around as if he can see me. Dr. Beckwith, what do you think about that? And his sense was so acute that he knew exactly where I was in the room. I wasn't saying anything. I was just sitting there kind of in prayer. He knew exactly where I was sitting, turned and said, Dr. Beckwith, what are your feelings about that? Whatever subject we were talking about. I said, oh, you know, I had to jump back in and participate. But his sensual perception was so acute. It was very powerful. Well, anyway, I'm glad that Stevie brought us together through Mark Victor Hansen, and it's been a joyous, wonderful fellowship and friendship that we have, and we're always here for each other. As you text the other day, brothers forever, you know. Forever. Brothers forever.
Now, you have such, especially as a man of color, you have a firm grasp on extended spirituality rather than denominational or church spirituality, which sets you apart. And you're very humble about who you are. You don't, so many, from Cicely Tyson to some of the top athletes in the LA area or in the country, so many people know and love you and listen to you and call on you. And you talking to me, we might be eating some of your vegan food, and you just got off the phone with who knows who. or they're calling you while we're talking. You just take it and move through life. You're a pastor to many celebrities and many powerful people who may be members of other denominations or go to other churches, yet they call on you when they want real pastoral counsel that is seasoned with wisdom and expansion. Very unique role.
Yeah, no, I feel very, very grateful about that. I can remember many people would come from different denominations, particularly to my Wednesday evening service. And I knew they belonged to different Kojic churches, you know, and we would talk. And I would say, I notice you're always over here. Don't you belong to so-and-so? They say, yeah, you know, we go there. That was the church of my mother, the church of my grandmother. You know, we have good fellowship there. But when I have a real problem, I got to come over here and hear how to deal with it, you know, spiritually and metaphysically.
Yeah.
You know? So they had feet in both camps.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with that. I want people to grow and unfold as their heart leads them to do so.
Sure. And they can feel that from you.
Yeah.
You're a very low maintenance friend, and you're not a pastor that weighs heavily on the people. The people adore you, but you don't take from us what isn't yours. You don't demand of us what isn't ours. And so I think that model of pastoring or ministering is unique to your spirituality. And that sets you apart. You know, I'm a connoisseur of good preachers and preaching. I've been in it all my life. And I'll tell you, dude, you are at a category. you're very metacostal as far as I'm concerned. You have the Spirit and the anointing, but you have the intelligence. And this, every time I go to your conferences, you have these amazing scientific thinkers there. I didn't even know they existed. And I said, where's this guy? And the meeting, and they become, I think, even enhanced by the spirit of revelation of the conference. There's just an anointing there that, in fact, the first time I spoke for the conference, but I stayed over Sunday morning. And when the choir, your choir, mounted the stage, and all these beautiful colors, cultures, denominations, recognitions of ethnicities, I just started crying. I said to Gina, I said, babe, that's what I always wanted to see in Azusa, and I never got to see it. What is happening, or what I'm feeling in this place with this man whom I just got to know, and the whole realm of science of mind and new thinking and new thought and expanded ways of thinking. This is what I want to be when I grow up.
And now you are.
And now I'm getting close, and I'm just so, I've never felt freer or happier or more curious or eager to do than I have since I met you.
You know what? I feel the same way. I feel like I have finally become the person I've always wanted to be. You know, I look back over a number of years, and there was some what I wanted. I was working on some things, and I realized recently, I said, you know what? I've actually become that, you know? And I'm not saying I'm a perfect human being. I'm not, but you know, I've become who I wanted to be.
Categorically, same here.
As an individual, you know? And that's a new plateau to keep going to the next iteration of who we are.
Yes.
It's a you know, I tell people would like to say that life is a marathon. I say, no, it's not a sprint. It's not a marathon. It's a way of life.
Way of life.
There's no tape where you cross the tape and you made it. You continually grow because we're infinite, eternal beings.
Infinite.
And there's always more of us to be revealed. You see, so it's a way of living, of growing, developing, and unfolding, being of service, cultivating generosity, cultivating love, compassion, kindness. You know, you may wake up one day and you may have blown something, so you forgive yourself and get back on your horse and get better at it. You know,
yes,
it's a constantly growing and unfolding, and you know.
Well, with evolution, I've learned it involves involution and dissolution. You evolve inwardly, but some things dissolve that were clusters in your life that didn't belong there as they were, and they separated and mixed into the other parts of your life and became part of your fluidity, and not something that stagnates or stunts the growth.
Right.
I've had a lot of things, some theology has had to dissolve and change, pass away. And in order to make room for the next iteration or the next reformation.
Right.
That's coming. Old wine skins, old winos, and old winers. Religiously, I'm done with all of that.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I want people to understand what you said, though, because involution always precedes evolution. Involution is akin to planting of the seed. And then there's dissolution, where you're letting go of anything that doesn't belong to you. And then evolution is the unfoldment of the idea that was in the seed. So and many people, they want evolution, but they're not doing the involution work. They're not planting seeds. They're not having the proper thought. They're not visioning. They're not praying. They're not connecting. You have to have an involution before you have evolution. And that's how it works.
That's that transcendent awakening, I think, that people are experiencing. This is global. I've never, and you know, you have to understand, from my classical Pentecostal fundamentalist background, that's millions and millions of people who are wrestling with confusion, distortions, and curiosities that they don't have permission to even pursue. And they're calling and listening and watching and saying, there's got to be more, Carlton. Tell us, is it okay for us to think this? Or I've actually had some of them say to me, have you ever heard of Michael Beckwith? I said, not only have I heard of him, I hear from him, even if I'm just listening to a cassette of something he preached 20 years ago or his sermon last Sunday. I said, is he okay? I said, of course. Are you okay? Of growing. Are you ready? Yes, I can't get enough of it. We keep turning it. My mother likes him. I thought, how old is your mom? My mama's 80-some years old. And or my grandkids listened to him and told me about him, something like that.
Right.
That I get a little braggadocious every once in a while. Oh yeah, I've known him for years. But
that's all right. I do the same with you.
Oh,
so listen, before we close off this part, I just want people to know that we're gonna come off of the IG Live in just a second, and we're gonna do a brief part 2 that's going to be on my app, and you can just go to michaelbbeckwith.com and get the app, and then you have there's a lot of freemiums on the app, which means a lot of material, such as the second part of this interview, and I've done interviews with Sue Morter and Verdine White and so many other people, and there's a lot of other inspiration on the app as well. So that's going to happen. And 2, be sure to if you haven't seen Bishop's movie Come Sunday on Netflix, watch it, because it'll fill in some of the gaps. Obviously, you can't tell the full story in a short movie, but it'll fill in some of the gaps of what he was talking about in terms of what he went through when he was called the heretic and ultimately was excommunicated from the church. It's a great movie. Who was that played you in the movie?
Chiwetel Ejiofor, who played 12 Years a Slave. Right. He was the star of that. Job.
And one of our Agape members, Bondi Curtis Hall, was in the. He was one of the guys that
He played the bishop. He played the bishop who denounced me.
Yeah. Bondi Curtis Hall. He's a longtime member of Agape, and we were in a singing group together called Tag. And Bondi's been a member of Agape for years.
You know, I didn't know that till he showed up to New York airing, the New York showing of the movie. I got to talk with him then, and he started talking about you. Right. And I said, I didn't even know he was a part of Agape.
Oh yeah, for years. He used to sing at Agape. He was a singer. He was in the group Tag. And
that's another example. Jason Segel, who played in the movie also, has been coming to Agape now for the last year, bringing his girlfriend. He says, we love it. We don't miss it. We adore it.
He was there every Sunday. He was there every Sunday until COVID hit.
Yes.
And now he's watching online. Yeah.
Yeah, he loves what he said. And, you know, he's Jewish. He went to Catholic schools in the daytime and Hebrew schools at night. He's very radical inclusive, but he said, where can I find something like this? And I said, Michael Beckwith, Agape. I look up Agape Spiritual International. And he said, he started going and hasn't stopped. And he brings friends.
Beautiful spirit.
So humble. Yeah.
So I want people to know to go to Netflix, watch your movie. 2, go to Carlton's Facebook page and get the download on the reverential prayer and meditation. Go to Zion Earth, SION Earth.com, and see the global meditation that was done a couple of weeks ago. And how can they find you, Carlton? I mean, you have a regular Facebook thing every week, right?
Yeah, Facebook, Carlton D. Pearson. That's my Facebook page that has no limits to how many people can be on or watch or be a member or a fan or a friend or an observer. That's Carlton D. Pearson, or bishoppearson.com is the site. But I try to get people to come to my Facebook page, because that's where I do most of my speaking and lectures and music. And starting January, we'll have these Zoom things where I'll interview you and people like you and just pick your brains and put it out there for.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.